And away we go. It is another nightcap right here on BearcatJournal.com, brought to you by our good friends at Galactic Fried Chicken. Visit www.galacticfriedchicken.com. Download the app, Android, iPhone, everything Galactic, or just make your way down to Dayton, Kentucky. It's what, like 7 minutes from downtown?
Roughly.
Tell them to pump it up. Get yourself 15% off your fried chicken. I haven't gotten enough tweets lately. I think people have now taken it for granted. They're going to Galactic. They're pumping it up. They're getting their fried chicken. They're just not sending me tweets anymore.
Not telling you about it.
It hurts my soul. It hurts my soul. All right, Aaron.
All right, Chad.
I didn't tell you what the topic was going to be tonight because I'm interested in. I didn't want you to prepare your responses here.
All right.
It feels like the page has turned, right?
Sure.
Cincinnati's filled their basketball roster. 9 Bearcats were just selected in the NFL draft.
Yeah.
It feels like the book on the 2021-2022 football and basketball seasons have closed, and we have turned the page to 2022-2023. Does that seem fair?
Sure. Yeah.
What do you mean, sure? Like
no, I'm agreeing. Yes, that's completely fair. I think we've moved well beyond. Unfortunately, there are no more days of Desmond Ridder, Kobe Bryant sauce,
right,
and the like.
That and Wes Miller year one, like that's in the rear view.
Half the roster's gone again, in a good way this time. And
I don't know that there's ever a good way. Like, it's never good to have to turn over half your roster all the time.
It's different than it was the last time.
Yes, that's fair. Who's got next, Aaron? When you look at, you know, like we've had stars in football that have been around for a long ass time on this football team that have now moved on to the NFL. In basketball, we've had a lot of roster turnover. There are some easy answers. There are some more nuanced answers. But with football, like you could say, like, who are the guys over the next 3 years that are going to dominate the scene? Or it could be a guy for 1 or 2 years, like a Brian Cook. Like, you know, it could be Dez that was a 4-year mainstay and kind of face of the franchise. Or it could be somebody that you know, has already established themselves and takes the next step. Like, who has next when it comes to football and basketball at Cincinnati? Who are the names? And it doesn't necessarily mean like NFL draft, but like when the team takes the field in 2023, and if you want to 2022, 2023, if you want to project long-term, I think this is an interesting exercise. Like, who are going to be the names? Who's Jason Kelsey? Who's Travis Kelsey? Who's Zach Caleros? Even like if you don't want to do like the guys that broke out and starred in the NFL but had great Bearcat careers. Like who is going to lead this program into the next phase of the Luke Fickell era in football? And who's going to lead the Wes Miller era into year 2? And like it, and potentially setting that stage for what happens in the Big 12. I think it's fascinating because I don't think there's a lot of easy answers here.
No, but I think there can be quite a few answers.
Sure, that's why I'm asking the question.
So I'll start easy, in my opinion, and I'll talk basketball first.
Okay.
And the 2 answers that come to mind as you're talking, 2-3 years. The easy answers are going to be Daniel Skillings and Rayvon Griffith.
I think that's fair. Skillings was going to be my answer. Like, I think short term, Landers Nolly, if he's here 2 years,
absolutely,
he could be a guy we're talking about a long time from now that bridged the final year in the American, made a run, like success, whatever that ends up being, and then was the star going into the Big 12. If he sticks around for another year, like I think that's kind of one could be the easy one, right?
One of the things I've talked about when we've talked about the basketball team is that Rayvon was the first domino to fall. And if Landers Nolley ends up being the guy that we think that he potentially could be for this team, he might actually be that first domino.
Well, yeah, if he scores 15 points a game and shoots 38% from three,
right.
All of a sudden, for a long time, we're going to be talking about how Landers Nolley came in and lifted this program up to a second level.
If we have a guy making 4 out of 5 free throws, I mean,
right?
When was the last time that happened?
Now imagine he does it with Daniel Skillings and with Rayvon Griffith, and those are like kind of the answers on the wing, as we've talked about, that like the wing is where college basketball is won now. And, it's certainly possible. I know everybody's hyped about Rayvon. I'm hyped about Rayvon. I think Daniel Skillings is going to be really good, man. Like,
he's got a ceiling that we don't even know about at this point, because he is so raw. His floor is quite high and his ceiling is insane. And that's all because he's still so raw. So to see what he looks like in even 2 years, I think we're all going to be gushing about this kid.
I agree. And I had that opinion of him last summer when I saw him play on the Under Armour circuit before he committed, and was, standing on the table screaming about how good this kid can be. So I agree with your assessment basketball wise. Now, if I ask this question in 2 months and Isaiah Collier's committed,
everything could change.
Might have a different opinion. If Arlington Page is committed,
you just have a
third Booker's committed. Like,
you just have a third answer, a fourth answer. Like, but I mean, you talked about who are going to be the guys that we're talking about. I mean, you go back to that team that had Jaren, that had Jacob Evans, that had Trey Scott, had Gary Clark. Right. They were all dudes we were talking about. You know what I mean? Like, those were all dudes that we were talking about. So I think you can have multiple people that become the guys, especially in basketball. As for football's a little bit different. I have several answers, but they go on both sides of the field.
Well, here's what I will say. The identity of this team under Luke Fickell has been defense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't expect that to change.
No.
So if I have one answer, one immediate first name that comes to my mind answer, it's Deshaun Pace.
And I wasn't sure if you were going to go Deshaun Pace or if you were going to go Jaheim Thomas.
I want to see Jaheim
produce,
like, when it matters, right?
And I wrote about that. I'm writing the Lindy's article for you, and I did write about the fact that
not for me. You're writing it for Lindy's,
right? I'm just saying I'm writing the Lindy's article, and you read what I wrote. But one of the things I wrote about for Jaheim was the fact that he has all the tangibles that you look for in a linebacker. He's got the size, he's got the strength, he's got the speed. We haven't seen all of those things that led to him at that point in time being the 9th highest recruit when he was recruited, the 9th highest in program history. We haven't seen all of these tangibles translate onto the field yet. He hasn't really been given the time because of the guys that were stacked in front of him.
Right.
This is his time, and we want to see all of those tangibles translate into on-field production.
There was also a point 2 years ago, or even a year and a half ago, where it was like, is Darian Beavers ever going to get there? Right?
Yeah.
Like,
and then all of a sudden he exploded right before higher ground. Right.
Yeah. So then he got there. I think Jaheim is a guy that I fully believe you are right about, that we could be talking about him at the top of the roster. Like within going into higher ground 2023, right? We could be talking about him at the top of the roster. Here's why I say Pace. He put up stupid numbers.
95 tackles last year.
and rotated. Like not like he had a guy that relieved him for like a breather, but a guy that also had like 70 tackles or whatever it was that Ty Van Fossen had.
Mm-hmm.
Like they totaled at one position, they totaled what would have been an absurd number of tackles. So we've already seen Pace do that. I think that's going to be like, in terms of on-field play, the guy, like defensively. That's just kind of my belief.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm still sticking my guns with Jaheim. Just looking at him, Pace is a little bit smaller, is able to cover a little bit better as you look at coverage linebacking, but I think Jaheim is going to be a monster, and I think he's going to make his presence known this year.
I agree.
On the offensive side, though,
but I mean, I don't know that we're done there.
On defense, are you looking at the secondary?
What if it's JQ?
Well, JQ, you can't mention this second. I didn't write about anybody on the secondary except for JQ.
Right.
He also was my newcomer to watch for, as I'm giving out all of my previews for my Lindy's article. But who else would you write about as far as a newcomer to watch for? He's already making waves. The fact that he's running with the twos, not subbing in with the twos, but starting with the twos. You got to think he's nipping at the heels of the ones. And we look at the ones, and nobody really stands out as like just a straight dog outside of Arquan Bush. So I think he's closer than anyone might realize.
Yeah. Fair. Offense. Josh and Lenny are easy, right? But that's a year. They're
right. That's not talking future. But if you look right behind them,
Shaman, Evan, Kiner, Tyler Scott, Jaden Thompson. There's a lot of names on offense because we don't know who was going to take over the mantle of like
Chris
go-to
Scott.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chris Scott's been excellent. Like
Drew Donnelly.
Yeah.
So that's where it gets a little intriguing.
Offense is almost pick a name out of a hat outside of like who wins the quarterback battle.
Right. But nobody's really, I guess we kind of are running into the same problem on offense that the basketball team had as far as last season went, where no one of this new wave is really rising above outside of Shaman to where you're like, that's the
one. I think there's some of that's prisoner of the moment just because he had a really good spring with Josh out. What do his reps look like if Josh was there this spring?
It wouldn't be the same, but that's taking advantage, answering the bell when your name's called.
But what I'm saying is Josh will be back.
Yeah.
Right. So
but you asked me for names that are going to be over the course of the next several years.
I know, but I'm not allowed to talk it out with you.
Yeah.
You don't have to get offended.
No.
I'm just talking it out. I'm just saying, what happens if we get to this point next year and Shaman caught 15 balls in all of the 2022 season,
that's a great thing for Josh Wiley because that means he stayed healthy. That's a great thing for Lenny because that means he stayed healthy.
I know, but then we're going into next year talking about, well, Shaman's got the potential, but what did we just talk about with Jaheim? It's the same thing, right? We've seen it, but we haven't seen it on the field. That's all I'm saying.
Sure. Fair point.
Just providing a little bit of a counterpoint.
We also haven't seen Corey repping a CPAW yet, so we don't know quite what Kiner is going to bring in this offense.
And how much different do we talk about the running back room now that – how much different do we talk about Miles Montgomery now that Corey's here?
Well,
because we were pretty certain 3 weeks ago Miles Montgomery was going to eventually, ascend to that level.
But if you go back to the whole iron sharpens iron thing and the fact that this team isn't foreign to running more than one running back, you go back to the days of Dokes and Warren. I mean, that was probably the last time they really did a two-headed monster.
They never really were a two-headed monster, though, because
Dokes got injured.
Stokes got hurt. And then by the time he came back, Warren was
the dude.
the dude.
Yeah.
I would say Dokes and Ford probably split more than Warren and Dokes, maybe.
I don't know. That would be an interesting fact to look up as far as both snaps and carries.
Yeah. All right. I thought this would just be a fun little, like, we didn't have a ton. We didn't have breaking news. You know, we had a whole week of, you know,
craziness.
Like a list of shit to talk about.
I mean, even on PTP last night, we couldn't get to our opinions on the basketball team. We have to push that off till next week because we're damn sure not going to be talking about this Reds team.
Right. So it was a matter of like, you know what? Now that I think about it, like it does feel like we're turning the page and it's time to like start focusing on what are these new storylines? Who's got next when it comes to the Bearcats? So I just wanted to get a little primer show out on that because it was something that was on my mind.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more names on defense primed for who's got next compared to.
I think there's a lot of names on offense. It's just a matter of who emerges as the go-to.
Which one?
Like who becomes the star.
Yeah.
That's going to be really interesting. All right, man. Well, I'll see you tomorrow night. We will have the BCJ pod. We'll have another nightcap. I'm working on a guest for the beginning of the BCJ pod. I don't know if it's going to work, but it would be a quick one, but it would be one that I think everybody would be interested in. So we'll see how it goes. You know how that is.
Yep.
Sometimes the guests line up. Sometimes it doesn't. It is the nightcap. We will see you tomorrow right here on BearcatJournal.com.
See